Bună dimineața și mă bucur să vă pot regăsi cu bine la Demo Metal Virtual ediția a doua. Iată, marcăm acum deschiderea unei noi ediții a celui mai important eveniment al comunității de business din industrie. Ca și la ediția online anterioară, nu vorbesc în fața unei mulțimi de oameni forfotind, cum era de obicei la deschiderile evenimentelor fizice, ci vorbesc în fața unei mici camere web aflată în propriul meu birou, și încerc doar să-mi imaginez forfota deschiderii evenimentului fizic. Eu sunt acum la birou și aș fi putut fi acasă. Unii dintre dumneavoastră poate lucrați de acasă sau din grădină. Asistăm la o schimbare profundă a modului în care funcționăm. Important este că prin intermediul tehnologiei nu suntem izolați și nu ne simțim singuri. Online-ul a devenit o modalitate de apropiere cunoscută tuturor. Este un mod de lucru care ne solicită continuu capacitatea de adaptare și în același timp recalibrarea așteptărilor la noul context. Chiar dacă nu ne este la fel de ușor să relaționăm de la distanță, cum ne este atunci când ne aflăm față în față, funcțiile acestei platforme ne vor aduce mai aproape unii de alții și astfel pe fiecare dintre noi mai aproape de atingerea obiectivelor noastre profesionale sau de business. Mecanismul de matchmaking al platformei de metal virtual va face participările mult mai utile și eficiente. Introduceți datele solicitate și veți beneficia de o experiență îmbogățită de navigare printre oportunități. Este luni dimineață și toată lumea este ocupată cu planificarea săptămânii ce începe azi sau deja cu rezolvarea sarcinilor zilnice. Sper ca printre activitățile planificate să facă parte din agenda cât mai multora dintre dumneavoastră și vizitarea paginilor companiilor ce își prezintă noutățile la Demo Metal Virtual 2021, poate participarea la workshop-uri, urmărirea demonstrațiilor live, a transmisiunilor din showroom-uri și fabrici, sau implicarea în tematicile tehnice și de business ale forumului. Demo Metal Virtual v-a pregătit o săptămână cu surprize plăcute. Explorațiile. Întrebați, comparați, interacționați și conlucrați. Este o ediție în care, după experiența primei participări, avem companii care au revenit, dar avem și foarte multe companii nou înrolate în experiența de business și networking online propusă de Demo Metal Virtual 2021. Le mulțumim celor 35 de companii participante în cadrul celor 7 saloane tematice. Puteți afla cele mai noi soluții integrate oferite de liderii domeniilor expuse în saloane. Acestea vor fi însoțite de peste 40 de oferte speciale, exclusiv în perioada evenimentului, 10 lansări de produse, 17 workshop-uri, dintre care 11 live, 3 live stream-uri din România, 2 și 1 din Germania, așa că înregistrați-vă pe platformă și profitați de toate aceste oportunități. Provocările fluxurilor de producție actuale au nevoie de soluții. Soluțiile cele mai bune vin dintr-o selecție inteligentă. Pentru asta ai nevoie să cunoști toate variantele disponibile pe piață pentru a putea alege. Asta este condiția de bază pentru a putea face o selecție bună, să ai din ce selecta. Un eveniment vă ajută să aveți de unde selecta și să aveți instrumente să comparați ofertele într-un context unitar. În condițiile în care încă nu ne putem întâlni la evenimentele fizice, așa cum eram obișnuiți, mă bucur să putem oferi în 2021 oamenilor din industrie ocazia de a se întâlni online într-o ediție Demo Metal Virtual. Vom continua să oferim astfel de experiențe și pe viitor, atât timp cât va fi nevoie de ele. În încheiere, mulțumesc partenerilor tradiționali ai evenimentului pentru seriozitatea implicării lor, ACAROM. Sunt două asociații, ACAROM și OPR, și la fel camerele bilaterale ale partenerilor principali economici ai României, Camera de Comerț Româno-Germană, Camera de Comerț Româno-Franceză, Camera de Comerț a Italiei în România și Camera de Comerț Britanică. Mulțumesc speakerilor și moderatorilor pentru participarea în forum și astfel pentru contribuția lor la dezvoltarea mediului de afaceri din industrie. Mulțumesc de asemenea pentru energia lor colegilor mei, peste 20 de tineri entuziaști din echipa tehnic media internă și extinsă, împreună cu care încercăm să construim un ecosistem dedicat industriei și să stimulăm interactivitatea necesară evoluției și succesului activității fiecăruia dintre participanți. Vă doresc o săptămână de lucru plină de reușite, combinând îndeplinirea sarcinilor zilnice cu update-ul profesional, aflarea ultimelor inovații și a ofertelor avantajoase, contactul cu reprezentanții companiilor furnizoare de soluții, instruirea cu specialiști importanți și cu schimbul de experiențe relevante care să vă inspire și să vă ajute să vă dezvoltați. Acestea fiind spuse, vă invităm la o săptămână de momental virtual și la primul sprint al forumului Smart Manufacturing for New Balance în câteva momente. Am revenit și tematica primului sprint al forumului nostru este Industria după un an de pandemie. Vom afla răspunsul la întrebări precum care au fost provocările cu care s-au confruntat companiile din industrie și cum le-au depășit. Au fost sprijinite firmele din România. Din păcate, niciun reprezentant al Ministerului Economiei care a fost invitat să participe la întâlnire nu a putut răspunde invitației noastre și chiar dacă nu a venit, sperăm să poată oferi totuși industriei surprize plăcute în perioada următoare. Vom afla de asemenea date din cea mai importantă industrie, industria auto, care sunt perspectivele, ce măsuri au luat guvernele statelor europene cu care România are cele mai importante relații economice. Vă invităm să aflăm împreună răspunsurile la aceste întrebări. Moderatorul acestui sprint va fi directorul general USH Pro Business și al Wallachia eHub, domnul Costin LIANU. Domnule LIANU, scena este a dumneavoastră.
Thank you very much for inviting me to moderate this very interesting session at the beginning. So I welcome everybody here, and before I would like to set a little bit the scene before speaking. Indeed, we speak about recovery and resilience. We speak about the post-pandemic world. Main factors of this resilience and recovery are related to what will happen in the business, what will be the new business models, how we'll go faster with digitalization, what will be the impact of the platforms, what is the Industry 4.0 about, how we'll cope with the problem of economic debts of the countries, and many, let's say, crucial issues related to the life of post-pandemic life. Unemployment may be rising. The working hours may become more flexible. We see already that there is a delocalization of the value chains and the global value chains. So many of these answers are not yet, let's say, addressed properly, because we are still at the beginning of a new economic era. And we are here now to listen to most of the people which are involved in the business to see what is their approach on this subject. It seems also that many countries has taken more active roles in supporting the companies, not only with the fiscal issues, but also in supporting their situation, economic situation, which is difficult. But also we see that many companies are investing in R&D activities, which it seems to me it's more accurate response to the crisis. It seems to me that investing in digitalization and in green corridors and the new delocalization of the value chains, it's something which is important, and it's important also for Romania, which can become a hub of the new delocalization. So these are the questions. This is the situation right now, and I will invite, according to the program, I will invite to speak. I will invite to speak Mr. Adrian SANDU, General Director of ACAROM, which has the knowledge and the lens and can give us a flavor of what is going on in this very important automotive industry in Romania, and what is its view and the view of the companies related to what will happen and what will happen in the future. Thank you, Mr. Sandu, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. LIANU. Thank you for the introduction, global introduction, and also thank you, Ionuț, for inviting us today to speak about this after crisis pandemic situation. And also, I'm glad to see here most of my colleagues, Sebastian, Silvio, Jérôme, and also the other partners which are involved in this event. I'm glad to see you again. And I will start by giving you a short update of what is happening what happened in the automotive industry and what is happening now, and which are the challenges we are facing at this moment, because there are many challenges for the automotive industry in Romania, and not only. So I'm having now a short X-ray of the automotive industry at the level of 2020. At the end of 2020, there are more than 640 companies in this sector with more than 240,000 direct employees. The share of total GDP of Romania created by the automotive industry remains at 14%. 12 of top 15 Tier 1 global suppliers have production facilities in Romania, and many of them already started since a couple of years ago to have also R&D, because you, Mr. LIANU, expressed earlier about the need of R&D in this situation. Total exports generated by the automotive industry, 17 billion euros, 27% of the national export is generated by the Romanian automotive industry, and top 3 export companies, not only from the automotive industry, but the whole industrial sectors, are Dacia, Ford, and Daimler. Of course, we have the main players, Dacia with 3 plants. I won't give you the numbers again, we maybe have it from previous presentations. Ford, which is the second important player on the market with an increasing capacity, adding volumes year after year. Now for the manufacturers in Craiova 2 models, EcoSport and Puma, and they already announced a new investment of about 300 million euros for producing a new commercial vehicles. A network of suppliers which is already great developed in Romania in all the regions, but especially in the western side of the country, but also in the south, of course, due to Dacia and Ford, and in the central part of Romania. We have a lot of important names, and you can see here on these slides which are the major OEMs and Tier 1 suppliers present in Romania for several commodities and components which are necessary to automotive industry. They are manufacturing not only for Dacia and Ford, this is very important, they are also manufacturing for Western car manufacturers, and this is contributing a lot to the exports. As I mentioned before, there are also R&D investments in Romania, big R&D investments like Renault, like Continental, but also investment in IT and design of components and parts, but also automatization and digitalization. And as an overview, we reached last year a turnover of 26.4 billion euros. It's minus 15% compared to 2019, of course, due to the COVID crisis and the stoppage of production required by the medical restrictions decided at the level of Europe, of the worldwide level, but also the level of Romania. And from this total turnover, the part generated by the components and assembly industry is 19.2 billion euros. And in the table, you can see that production dropped with around 52,000 units. We are expecting to have coming back into the second part of 2021. I will tell you why in the second part and why now. And concerning new PC passenger cars registrations, we still are at a lower level than in 2020. So we hope after adopting RABLA programs to have an increase. It remains still high, the used car registration volume, which is still on the same level as in 2020. Which are the main challenges now? We faced in 2020, starting February, coronavirus. Now we are facing another crisis, electronic components, lack of electronic components. So the production of these components is very important for the automotive industry, and not only. All the sectors need electronic components. You need electronic components to manufacture phones, laptops, TVs, household appliances, and everything else. So that demand increased over the last period, and also the need of these components increased, and the request from the automotive industry is very high this moment, because since 10 years ago, the share of electronic components and electronics in vehicles increased a lot. We are also facing mobility challenges. We are passing to green vehicles. We are passing to hybrid and electric vehicles. So the need for technology, new technology, is quite high, and we need a lot of investment in research and development. Another challenges is related to CO2 emissions. At the level of European level, at the level of European Union, there are strict requirements concerning CO2 emissions from vehicles, but also CO2 emissions for production, generated by the production of vehicles and components. And if it wasn't enough, we are facing another crisis, another challenge, let's say challenge, not crisis. The increase of prices for raw materials. We are facing now an important increase of prices for plastic, rubber, for steel, which all are needed in the automotive sector, and not only. And we need to do something in this respect. Which are the solutions? Of course, we are talking about challenges, but we are also thinking about solutions. Of course, when the pandemic hits Romania and Europe, we need more flexibility concerning labor. And we talked with our authorities, national authorities, and they accepted our suggestions. So we now also have in Romania Kurzarbeit, which is an important support for the companies, but also for the employees which are working in our industries. We need the economic support. So we've seen during last year economic support from the authorities in order to keep the jobs and also to keep the activity at a satisfactory level, we can say that. But we also need innovation and digital transformation. We need to adapt more and more to these situations. We as persons, we are seeing now that we are taking part more in online meetings than ever before. 2 years ago, we didn't think that it will be possible to have online meetings from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or to 6 p.m. And we are now not needed anymore to travel, and it's a lot easier to connect on Zoom or other web app in order to have meetings. So we need a lot of digitalization in our works, but we also need another thing. We need to think more about local integration, local integration of parts on suppliers. We are seeing now the crisis for electronic components, which are coming from China and Taiwan, especially, but also from the US. And the trade war, let's say trade war between China and the US brought a lot of uncertainty concerning the availability of those components. The US wants to have more production of microchips in their part. The China wants to expand more and more their trade business, and Europe is somewhere at the middle between them. And we need to find, we as companies and industries, we need to find more suppliers locally. And this will support us, and this will help us to achieve our goals concerning production and availability of parts, but also predictability concerning supplying parts needed for our final products. So we are supporting now that trend to supply locally some parts, but we also support big tier 1 suppliers to find suitable components and companies which can supply to them in Romania. Who we are as an association, we are a public utility status recognized by Romanian government decision in 2020. So we are the main partners of the Romanian authorities for the automotive industry. We are gathering more than 170 companies covering all the field in the automotive industry. And since 2006, we are an associated member of the ACEA, the European Automobile Manufacturer Association, and being the only representative of Romanian automotive industry at European level. We are now celebrating this year the 25th years of activity as the most important automotive association in Romania. And if you have questions and if you want to have an interaction, a quick interaction with the automotive industry, we are the gate to do this. So thank you for inviting us again, Onuț, and we are glad and will be glad to be your partners to the future editions of Demo Metal or the other events you organize. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Sandu. It was very interesting insight about our automotive industry and components. It seems that we fared quite well in these times. As you put it, there are several crises which added to these pandemics, and people are saying, many people are saying that pandemics can accelerate some positive attitudes towards new business models. But now, if you have questions, it's the time to ask Mr. Sandu questions. I will ask you, Mr. Sandu, if you can describe a little bit what will be the future of the Romania as a let's say nearshoring source of, if we speak about this trade wars, we speak about this delocalization. Do you think that companies from different parts of Europe will prefer to delocalize in Romania instead of going with their production facilities in other non-EU countries?
I always supported the new investments, and also upgrading investments in Romania for the automotive industry. And we attracted a lot of companies from Europe, but not only from Europe, also from Japan and US, to come in Romania and invest in the automotive industry. In these times, I'm seeing after this crisis a trend to come back from China, to come back from Asia to Europe, of high-tech companies, but not only high-tech companies, but also high level of production and important level of production. And we as Romania, we have a huge potential to attract investment, but we also need infrastructure. We also need investments in dual education, in local universities, in cooperation between companies and universities. So if we are smart enough to have this upgrade on infrastructure, universities, etc., we will attract more and more investments in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Sandu. The good news for you and for us in the region that we set up a network of universities, which is called Muntenia Universitas, and all the universities in the region will approach you to see and to help in your research activities for the benefit of the companies. Thank you very much, Mr. Sandu.
Thank you also.
I would like now to pass the floor to Mr. Sebastian METZ from the powerful German-Romanian Chamber of Commerce, which is called in German Außenwirtschaft. That means external economic arm of businesses in Germany to Romania, which have very deep knowledge of the Romanian market and the bilateral relations, to speak about these challenges. Mr. Sebastian METZ, please.
Thank you very much, Costin. I will take some seconds actually to share my presentation here. So welcome also from my side. I hope that now you can see the things, not so well. Now it should work. Display setting. Okay, perfect. I hope now everything is fine.
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. Thank you very much, Costin. AHK is a bilateral chamber of commerce, German-Romanian chamber. German-Romanian bilateral relations stands for, let's say, almost 30 billion of bilateral trade, around 13 billion of direct investments, 250 direct employments, etc. So it's a let's say a visible footprint in the Romanian economy. We have around 7,500 German companies here in Romania, or companies with a German capital injection, capital participation. And most of these German companies are located, like Adrian mentioned it already a little bit. It is based in the western and central parts of Romania, to a certain extent, also in the southern parts where the economic hubs are, and of course in Bucharest. And unfortunately, until now, to a less extent in the eastern and southeastern parts. This is definitely something that we have to focus commonly together on in the next year to intensify actually economic activities, at least from the German companies also in this part. Yeah, today we are talking about the manufacturing industry on this wonderful forum. Thank you very much, UNUTS, for organizing this year, the Demo Metal in the virtual space. Lots of success for you and those who are attending your conference and your virtual trade fair. I was asked to give a very short overview about the measures adopted in Germany in order to support the industry. So to compare maybe a little bit what kind of activities Germany has done. It is just a very, very short overview because it is quite complex and quite big what Germany had in place, but I found some information, and then I will give you a glimpse of how Corona impacted the German companies in Romania, and then of course some challenges that are still to be faced by the German companies in Romania, a little bit more general aspects I will mention in this regard. So let's have a look on what Germany has done. This is in Germany. I do not want to elaborate very much on this slide, but you can see there are on the left part some social measures or socially measures which were taken by the German state, and some fiscal measures on the right side, and some banking financial measures, I would say, fiscal and banking measures. And I will concentrate on two things actually. First of all, of course, there was also this kind of bridging aid, we call it, Überbrückungshilfe, that German companies received from various angles, from the banking system, direct aid, ads for the self-employed, ad also for the non-profit corporation and organization. So these were these were altogether some financial direct support for the German companies. Of course, we had also all the measures in the tax-related field, some tax deferrals, so that companies were a little bit more relaxed when it comes to tax payment. And then the third thing here on this slide, I want to concentrate a little bit more and to say that this could also be a measure that can be adopted by Romania. It's a so-called Ausbildungsprämie. It's a kind of training bonus, but it's not a bonus. It's a support, because in Germany, you know that the dual professional education system is quite well established, and it is very, very important actually in Germany to have skilled workforce. Lots of German companies in the Corona times were under pressure financially, and they were at least, let's say, they were also under pressure in order to continue or to accept new apprenticeships. The German government said this is a very, very important aspects that the companies has to support, has to continue actually the apprenticeship programs inside the companies, and they realized they built up several measures actually to support German companies in order to carry on their vocational training in the respective companies. So this is something that, as far as I know, Romania has not adapted. The vocational training here in Romania is maybe not at the same size, but nevertheless, we are talking about 30,000, 36,000 of pupils who are currently in the education, professional education programs. And this is something that might help, of course, also these companies who are in the program. It is not only a Corona program, it can be also implemented here in Romania when the corona pandemic is over, in order to boost actually to this vocational training programs here in Romania, in order to help the companies to build up such programs and to financially support the companies actually. Then there's another thing also already mentioned by Adrian, Kurzarbeit. It exists in Germany since 110 years. So 110 years, not 10 years, so 110 years. As a German Chamber of Commerce, we are also very delighted and very happy that the Romanian government adopted this kind of support scheme here in Romania. Of course, there are already supporting schemes like the chômage technique in place, but the flexibility and the innovative approach, I would say, of Kurzarbeit is quite unique, and it was also supported by the European Union. In Germany, as I said, it exists already since 110 years, and of course it was widely used also in the pandemics by German companies. In April, for example, in April 2020, so 1 year ago, there were more than 6 million employees in the Kurzarbeit scheme. So, then this was a peak actually, and then it fell slowly. Right now we have, I think, around 2.5 employees still in this short Kurzarbeit scheme, mainly those companies who are in the HoReCa industry. Germany spent until now 100 billion euros for financially supporting the companies in Germany, and an additional 30 billion euros for Kurzarbeit. I heard analysts or speakers saying that this is approximately the same amount which has been lost by the corona measures, by the lockdown measures on the industry. So roughly the same GDP loss was injected by state measures into the German economy. That was it actually, a glimpse of activities. As I said, I highlighted the training bonus and the Kurzarbeiter scheme. How did Corona impacted the German companies in Romania? You know, as a bilateral Chamber of Commerce, we are not only focusing on manufacturing industry, although in our, let's say, economic structure here in Romania, the manufacturing industry has a major role in terms of investment in direct employment and turnover. But nevertheless, we have also lots of German companies in the service sector, and the construction, and the retail and wholesale, and the logistics, etc. It is not a surprise for you, I would say, that in the manufacturing industry, of course, the months of April, May, June were very challenging. Especially also the logistical challenge which appeared actually, to transport the goods. But actually, I would say in July, August, and in September, most of the companies were actually back to almost normal business. What this industry is affected indirectly, let's say, is a decline in the customer orders. There could be, but I do not think it's a long-lasting effect. But there will be definitely change in the consumption patterns, which this industry will indirectly be affected by. In the service sector, they were not so much hindered, as you all know, to perform their service activity. right now, still the biggest problem of the sector is this travel ban, or the problems actually to travel, to perform the service on the spot. This is still quite hindering for this sector. But I think the biggest challenge for this sector is, of course, the digitalization of the business model, which in some parts boosted, but in some parts, those companies who were not ready, they are lagging behind. Construction and material processing, of course, they were not they were not very much hindered to perform the activities. Actually, it was a boost for them. Right now, what we expect is an increase of the business due to the public tenders, due to the European programs, the Recovery and Resilience funds, or the other European funds, which will definitely also be put into programs to increase the infrastructure here in Romania, and this will end into higher public tenders, and we hope that we will see also this process here in Romania. Then we have the distribution companies, the price increase, and the logistic companies. Okay, they are still facing a lot with price increases. Adrian was mentioning this already in the ship industry, but there is an overall huge development of price increases, and we will see also for the manufacturing industry that we will talk more about the price increase than about Corona or any other measures, due to the fact that the Green Deal will have effects until 2030, 2050, but the Green Deal will have effects in the next 1 and 2 years already on the price dynamics, and this will also affect the manufacturing industry. So this is something that all the manufacturing industries companies have to have a very, very good look at this very carefully. What is the actual mood? What is the actual sentiment of the German-Romanian business community here in Romania? How satisfied are you with the economic environment from Romania? So we have reached 50% saying that they are very satisfied. 37% are satisfied, and only 15% are not satisfied. It's quite a good. I would say, to summarize, it's quite a good picture. It's quite a good sentiment. It's quite a good mood, actually, in terms of investment climate here in Romania of German and Romanian companies. If you have a look, actually, how do you assess the prospects of the country's economy for the current year compared to the previous year? It's another question. So we can see that there's a lot of optimism here in 2021 of German companies. So when we compare these figures to 2019 or 2020, we see quite satisfied or very satisfied companies here in Romania, and the unsatisfied companies are only 26% of the survey. Maybe some general words before I come to this. You will find actually this is just some questions of our very new survey. We will publish this survey in this week, or latest the beginning of next week. I would be happy if you consult our homepage in order to get the full report of the survey, where you can find more information about the German-Romanian sentiment regarding the business outlook. Yeah, then I come to the last aspects. What are the challenges that are still to be faced by German companies in Romania? It's just a selection, yeah. And lots of these things we'll discuss also by other speakers, and I think we will have a good discussion about it. We will face still we need a higher flexibility of the labor law, of the working modalities actually. This is something still needed. What we wish to have is a continuation of, for example, of the Kurzarbeiter scheme, not only in the pandemic period, but we need the Kurzarbeiter scheme also in non-pandemic periods, because we think it's a very good instrument for companies who are in financial difficult times. And there are all these labor law aspects which needs to be updated due to our experience from the Corona pandemic. There's still a big problem in the technological literacy when we want to implement digitalization, when we want to work in an industrial 4.0 environment. We need the skills for this. So this is a cornerstone. This is a ground level aspects. Actually, we need more technological literacy here in Romania, and we need to update also our educational infrastructure. As I said, we will have a huge impact from the Green Deal, so tackling climate change. This topic will definitely have a huge impact on the manufacturing industry here in Romania. The ongoing topic of cybersecurity and like Adrian was already mentioned, the price fluctuation of raw materials. This will continue. Last slide, last aspects. Almost half of the companies, when we ask the companies, when do you expect a return of the pre-corona sales of your company, almost half of the companies said that this will be in 2021. To be exact, 47%, 42 plus 5%, and the rest thinks it will be a little bit later. 5% they are saying that it will never be the case anymore. For more information, it's a very new publication that we have published. You will find it on the homepage. For more information about the German business here in Romania and the bilateral relation, I can only highly recommend you our business location Romania publication that contains a lot of more statistical data. The last thing that I would like to say here in this ground, to share some thoughts also and to prepare a little bit our discussion. Adrian was mentioning this already with the microchips. I would love to see more engagement of Romania in the, let's say, in the already existing discussion on the European level. What I want to say exactly is we need an involvement and engagement of Romania in the so-called IPCEI projects. It means the European project, important project of the European Union, IPCEI, IPCEI, it's written, and there are 3 ongoing IPCEI projects. One is on battery, on hydrogen, and on microelectronics. Romania being an industrial site, being an industrial nation, economy, we need a stronger involvement in these kind of projects from Romania because it will definitely design the economic development in Europe and so also for Romania. I thank you for your attention. These were like a horse ride, I would say, a horse ride through the German-Romanian sentiment and situation here in Romania. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. It was a very interesting presentation about and with a lot of ideas in a very substantial presentation of what is the sentiment of the German economy working in Romania in these times of post-pandemics. I retain this idea of training. As a digital transformation center, we made our service in the region of the southern part of Romania, and we see that this is really true among the managers, among the companies, employees. There is a big crucial issues of literacy in technological and digital technologies, because now technologies cannot be, let's say, abstracted from the digitalization. So indeed, we will try to be part of your efforts with our network of universities in this area. So please, questions from the audience to Sebastian.
Maybe I exceeded a little bit my time. Let's do the question at the end, and my colleague.
Okay. Okay. We'll skip to the question, then we'll remain to the conclusion, and then I will invite Monsieur Jérôme France, Vice President of CCIFER, the French-Romanian Chamber of Commerce, to deliver the speech.
Merci. Eu am prevăzut să vorbesc și în limba română, dacă e ok, Costin.
Perfect.
Ok, super. La nivelul CCIFER avem, cum s-a făcut și la ACA, acest barometru vis-a-vis de membrii noștri. Nu am prevăzut să vă-l prezint astăzi, dar este disponibil pe site-ul ccifr.ro. Aveți tot acest barometru, este ceva care este public de noi și o să vedeți cum se simt firmele franceze în general. Ce pot să vă spun este că la nivelul actual, comunitatea franceză sunt 3600 de companii în România, 125.000 de loc de muncă în diverse sectori. Bine evident că și IMM-ul a fost afectat. Noi ne concentrăm foarte mult pe zona de IMM, să vedem cum a fost afectat, care sunt preocupările principale și în cazul nostru, feedback-ul este că cel mai important este bine evident cash flow. Gestionarea cash flow pentru IMM în general a fost challenge-ul cel mai mare. Ce am prevăzut azi dimineața este, în calitate de antreprenor, să împărtășesc cu voi practicile care am pus la punct în firma noastră, care au făcut de fapt că chiar dacă nu suntem într-un domeniu privilegiat de coronavirus, pentru că știți că în coronavirus avem niște membri, spre exemplu, care lucrează în plexiglas și atunci a fost un boom pentru ei în acel an de coronavirus, pentru că trebuie să fac tot echipamentul specific. Noi nu suntem deloc într-un domeniu legat de asta, facem și industrial și am reușit totuși să facem că 2020 să fie un an foarte bun. Noi bună practică le-am pus sunt următoare. În primul rând, când am intrat în pandemie, ne-am concentrat asupra formării oamenii noștri, pentru că activitatea era într-un boom foarte mare și noi le-am identificat cu o oportunitate. O oportunitate având în vedere că activitatea în general s-a liniștit un pic și am putut să profităm de această ocazie ca să punem niște plan de formare de coaching pentru aprofundat pentru ansamblu echipei noastre. Pot să vă spun că la nivelul resurse umane a fost un impact foarte pozitiv. Toate oamenii au apreciat și este ceva care pentru noi a fost o revelație în cadrul firmei. În cadrul acesta de formare, de dezvoltare, am putut să lansăm și activitățile noi în cadrul firmei. folosind mijloc fabricile care avem, transformând oamenii noștri din comerț și care aveau un profil mai mult de farmer într-un profil de hunter ca să se ducă să vezi clienții noi și așa mai departe. Și nu în ultimul rând, am profitat și profităm de fapt de programele care există, cu programele de fond european care există în România, ca să dezvoltăm două proiecte foarte ambițios. Primul, sper să-l semnăm zilele acestea, proiectele pe linie port, plan operațional regional 2.2, atât regional ca și național, și a fost niște oportunități foarte mari. Jumătate din noi investim anul acesta cu ajutorul acest program european, jumătate din cifra noastră de afaceri. Deci, proporțional, este ceva care este foarte mare. E cel mai mare investiție care am realizat în istoria noastră și profităm să-l facem acum. Acest însemn de bună practică la nivelul nostru, IMM, care fac 12 milioane de euro cifră de afacere, a fost un adevărat accelerator. Atât la nivelul intern, cu echipele noastre, ca și la nivelul piața, cu investițiile noi care ne-am propus. În ceea ce privește Franța și activitatea cu Franța în general, ce găsim la noi? E aproape aceleași, măsurile sunt foarte similare cu ce există în Germania. Statul francez s-a confortat ca să creeze niște scheme de finanțare pentru investiții. Ce găsim și în România cu acest tip de program, apropo, dar această prioritate a fost și una pentru statul francez. Pe lângă acesta, accelerare, transformare digitală și ecologică pentru firme este un din factori care este esențial în Franța în momentul de față. Susținere inovației și acces la muncă pentru tineri. Acces la muncă pentru tineri printr-un scutiri de cheltuieli sociale, taxele și așa mai departe, pentru firmele care se propun să angajeze niște tineri. Pe lângă acesta, sunt niște măsuri complementare pentru a favoriza export. Aici, într-adevăr, avem un sistem în Franța care este foarte, foarte performant ca să sprijine firmele să facă export. Nu în ultimul rând, vreau să abordez și subiectul legat de asociații profesionale, fie Camera de Comerț bilaterală, fie asociații cum sunt ACAROM sau alte. Ideea este că chiar avem un feedback foarte, foarte pozitiv din membrii noștri. E foarte important în această perioadă dificilă să funcționeze în comunitate. Fiecare cu specificele lui. Dar comunitatele ajută firmele și IMM-ul și pot doar să le încurajeze să mergem în direcția acesta, fiindcă acolo găsim un schimb de experiență. Eu v-am împărțit ce am făcut în firma mea, dar când suntem în cadrul comunităților noastre, avem grup de lucru diferit pe diferite subiecte și putem să vorbim între noi. Așa cum îl facem și la nivelul antreprenor. Și atunci găsim niște soluții, identificăm soluții pentru fiecare dintre noi. Este ceva care este foarte important. Putem să avem acces la informații mai clare, mai sintetizate, atât vis-a-vis de măsurile care sunt de stat, ca și măsurile europene, acces la fond european și așa mai departe. Deci este ceva care este foarte important. Ultimul precizare, pentru că eu realizez că nu am vorbit despre asta când am vorbit de investiții și mai ales că e bine legată cu demometal, este foarte important investiția în tehnologie. Noi, investiții pe care le derulăm în momentul de față, investim în lasertube, investim în niște echipamentele care sunt tehnologice și care ne permit, împreună cu inovația, să venim pe piața cu produs noi, dezvoltat și eficient. A doua criză a fost abordată de către Adrian și de către Sebastian. A doua criză pentru IMM în general vine. Și a doua criză adevărată acum și pe care suntem tot precoți și nu avem soluții miracol, este preț de materiale prime. Când suntem o firmă foarte mare, cum este Automobil Dacia, Ford sau alții, avem echipele care sunt în jurul nostru. Când vorbim de un IMM și este un larg public de astăzi, nu avem echipele ca să pot să țin, cum să spun, să țin negocierile cu furnizorii de metal, spre exemplu. Este un problem adevărat, pentru că IMM-ul care au contracte cadre cu firme foarte mari, cum este și în industria auto, este foarte dificil când te găsești în fața un comparator care știe și el că metal a dublat. Să spun, bun, trebuie să ne creștem prețurile. Și aici este un exercițiu care trebuie să fie făcut și la nivelul actor foarte mare din industrie, ca să înțelegă partenerii IMM care sunt în jur, ca să ridic un presiune de pe ele și să conduc niște analize obiective. Eu cred că toată lumea are de câștigat și firmele mari care vor avea această abordare cu furnizorul ei vor câștiga. Este un adevărat challenge pentru toate IMM să traverseze aceste perioade, pentru că odată când lucrurile sunt stabilizate, totul devine normal. Dar această tranziție este dificil și atunci trebuie pentru IMM o structură financiară foarte solidă în care te poate permite, într-o anumită perioadă de timp, să treci prin această adaptare, să suporte eventual niște pierderi pentru o perioadă de tranziție. Este a doua adevărată criză și noi ne așteptam, eu mă aștept personal ca și antreprenor și l-am împărțit cu colegii mele la Camera de Comerț franceză, noi așteptam să fie o perioadă foarte dificilă pentru IMM, toată lumea va trebui să fie de înțeles. Așa vreau să împărțesc cu voi astăzi și vom fi foarte deschis pentru întrebările voastre.
Mulțumesc foarte mult, Jérôme. Continui în română, pentru că, într-adevăr, problemele care sunt sesizate și sunt corecte și intervențiile dumneavoastră, la fel ca și în Germania, și noi asistăm aici, studiile noastre privind situația IMM-urilor din România arată o imagine foarte proastă. Nu rezistă foarte multe, jumătate din ele au probleme financiare grave. Felicitări pentru modul în care faceți transfer de cunoștințe către firme. Poate învățăm și noi să facem l'accompagnement des entreprises à l'extérieur, adică acele forme de ajutor, de susținere pentru export, pentru că structurile asociative din România au de învățat într-adevăr de la experiența franceză, de la experiența germană, de la experiența italiană. Dacă doriți, o să facem sesiunea de întrebări la final. Dacă e cineva care dorește să pună o întrebare acum, să o pună, dacă nu, trecem mai departe și ne concentrăm pe final cu dezbaterile. Dacă nu e cazul, I will speak to English or Romanian, I don't know, but I will give the floor to Roberto Musneci, President of CCIFER, Italian Chamber of Commerce, to give the speech and what is the feeling and the sentiments of the Italian companies working here.
Thank you very much. And let me just try to share a few slides. I don't know if you can see the screens.
Yes, we see it.
Okay, good. Just let me minimize this. Right. I got it in the wrong way. There you are. First of all, thank you very much for the kind invitation that comes for the second year. Last year, one of our major companies, Prysmian, participated on the Chamber's behalf. I'm very pleased to be here today. And actually, I was given the task to provide in 2 or 3 slides a little bit of a snapshot on how Italy went and is still going through the pandemic crisis from the economic and from the healthcare standpoint. I can see from the colleagues, from the German and French colleagues, that you also went into sentiment, so to speak, of the business community in Romania. So I will do so at the end without the slide support. But one thing I can anticipate, the positive sentiment that Sebastian shared in particular is also shared by the Italian business community. The Italian Chamber, as you know, is a public institution or part of the Ministry of Economy of my country, represent to a large extent the vast majority of the Italian businesses in Romania. We have over 25,000 operational companies as we speak, but of course the vast majority of them are small or very small companies. And again, among the largest top two within the first three countries in terms of trade balance. Now let's go back to the original thing. I mean, you've heard it already. You heard it from Sebastian. You heard it from CCF, from the French, from Jérôme. The typology of measures is pretty much the same across Europe, and Italy is no difference. The difference, as far as my country still is concerned, is the effectiveness of implementation. And in this respect, without any kind of political polemic, actually, but everybody recognized, and I recognize in the first place, that there is a moment, there is a watershed. There is an Italy before the Draghi administration and after the Draghi administration. What happened in quality terms, apart from the reliability, the credibility, and so on and so forth, something else has happened in Italy, which is a number of, let's say, measures which were not probably of any particular strategic character. And I could give 2 or 3 examples if someone is curious, had been finally removed. And we've concentrated on strategic measures that alleviate the difficulties faced by the economy. I'll go there in 3 main sections. I mean, and you've heard it in more numerical terms by Sebastian in his excellent presentation. There have been a number of non-repayable grants for medium, small and medium enterprises in particular. There has been tax deadline extensions, as we've seen also, I guess, in France and also in Germany. There has been suspension of VAT payments and social contributions. There have been various forms of tax credits. And here, that's exactly where some of the most extravagant measures, let's say, conceived in the past have been rationalized and eliminated by the Draghi administration, which seems to have a far more impactful approach. In welfare terms, again, more of the same. The restriction measures that we have, in terms of welfare measures, again, more of the same. Redundancy fund extension. That's it's convoluted English way to say basically the block of any company dismissal. But of course, the state intervened with unemployment funds. There has been an emergency income measure. This, in fact, precedes the pandemic, and it was let's say, the main political topic of one of the parties that was at the base of the former governments and still part of the current government. Now that emergency income, also called citizenship income, has been widened during the pandemic, and we will see over the coming months how will then be reabsorbed. Of course, a number of other measures of financial support have been taken in relation to remote working, special leaves, and other types of bonus. The babysitter bonus is one of them. There are also other types. But again, even in welfare measures, this has not been very different in principle terms from what we've seen in other countries, including Romania. Healthcare all of a sudden in Italy as well as in other countries shifted, and this is good news actually, from being a cost to being an investment. All of a sudden, the pandemic made us realize that health protection is a prerequisite for economic growth. Now, medical personnel has been a very difficult topic to address over the past year and a half, and still a number of medical personnel, which, for example, was already in retirement, or last year healthcare students for some of the most, let's say, trivial duties of the health sector were drafted in. That, of course, increased substantially the amount of financial resources dedicated to the health sector. Of course, the drugs bill increased. The drug bill increased not only in terms of funding of the emergency units, which were stretched to the limit. Just to note that Italy's got about 3 times the intensive care units present in Romania, which is pretty much a parameter to the size of the population. But the cost of exercise of any intensive care unit is extremely high, as well as in any other country. So that required a substantial injection of financial resources. And then there has been made an effort to let's say, publish granular data on the pandemic, because this allowed local communities to take customized measures for that specific region. So effectively, all restriction measures have been done jointly by the national authorities and the local authorities of every specific region. And so we moved into what is called the color-based restriction. Now the picture, thanks God, is substantially better than what you are seeing in this picture, which is back a few months. Practically the whole of Italy now is yellow, bar some micro locations. And it is expected to move to green over the coming few weeks, or 2 to 3 weeks, and hopefully getting back the summer. Now, this is really due to how well we will perform the vaccination process. And that's another main watershed between the Draghi administration and previous administration. In a matter of a few weeks, actually, we reached approximately 500,000 vaccinations per day. And as we speak, about 35% of the population got at least 1 shot of the vaccination, which in this respect make us relatively optimistic on the evolution over the coming 60 days or so, and so ahead of the summer. This is, for Italy, is critical because of the tourist season, as you can easily imagine. Now, the toll, though, has been substantial. This is honestly, even when I saw it, I thought there was a mistake. Unfortunately, there is no mistake. The GDP loss has been epochal, I would say. Bear in mind that we have not recovered yet from the 2008 crisis, as you can see, and therefore the return to pre-COVID level. I mean, pre-COVID level, it's not 2008. It's not expected before, I would say, mid to late 2024. Now, I don't want to stop with a gloomy picture like that. So the first thing I'll do, I'll move it out. But I would also like to look at one element of the bright side. I mean, on the one hand, it is known, so I'm not hypercritical towards my country, it is widely known that the Italian state historically is not very efficient, has not been efficient at all, actually, as administration of public funds. And there is a strong hope that this will change under the Draghi administration. On the other hand, it is also very well known that private wealth has been growing consistently over the last 30 years. Italians are good savers of money. So on the one hand, yes, there is public debt. On the other hand, most of that public debt is towards the citizens, which bought bonds, at least until a few years ago. And now the investment categories is far more diverse, but there is this dichotomy. On the one hand, the state need to shape up. On the other hand, Italian families are in a relatively good shape. Also, I would say in the last year, thanks to a relatively substantial financial support. And with this, I would move to say a few words without any slide support on how we, the Italian community, feels about the economic climate in Romania. There is one slide that, again, Sebastian showed earlier on, which shows how between 2018, I think it was, or 2017 and 2021, the sentiment has shifted substantially on the positive side, particularly after 2018. I would say, I dare to say that that type of sentiment would be applicable also to the Italian community, for sure. This I can give it for granted, but also to many other communities, foreign business communities, which gained confidence in the evolution of the Romanian economic system over the last 12 months, 12, 18 months, I would say. So we do share that. There has been last year an increase of approximately 8,000 Italian companies registering in Romania. Again, most of them small or small, medium, in many cases, very small enterprises. But there is definitely a positive outlook in our projections as to the evolution of the bilateral relations, which is obvious, but on the overall economic climate. We do see an increase of wealth in the regions, and I think we have good antennas there, because one of the characteristics of the Italian business community, being small and medium enterprises, is that we are very evenly distributed across the territory. So we do have a sense of how wealth is flowing from the main centers. So basically, I'm talking about Bucharest and those 10 cities beyond over 200,000 people. I mean, the rest of Romania is in small cities or villages, and we do have a sense that there is economic growth starting or accelerating in these areas. Of course, this will be eased by infrastructural development plans, and so we are keenly looking at some of the aspects of the PNRR. Clearly, in terms of infrastructures, in terms of the Green Deal, the European Green Deal, and how this will be modeled in Romania. And in terms, last but not least, of how Romania will tackle the need to provide appropriate healthcare services, not only in the main centers, but also across the territory. This is very important because of what I said at the beginning. I mean, healthcare is more and more considered, not only in Romania, as an investment rather than a cost, and therefore it will be critical over the coming years to see how through these additional resources provided by European Union, so the famous 80 billion or 40 out of the 80, whatever it is, what percentage, which we know is high, but how that percentage will be allocated to improve the healthcare sectors. So these are, in a way, the 3 or 4 key areas. We are pretty optimistic on the evolution. We look specifically at how the resources of PNRR will be deployed, particularly on 3-4 areas. We're talking about infrastructure, healthcare, and energy. Of course, digitalization is a sort of minimum common denominator to all the deployment of the resources. At this point, I would probably stop here and then happy to answer questions as they come out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roberto. It's a very interesting approach also. It confirms what the other speakers said about the sentiments about Romania, but also it confirms one crucial aspect you mentioned is about implementation of these schemes and how national states are implementing actually schemes for recovery, which is also an issue also in Romania. So, but there are questions. There is also one question addressed to you. Maybe after when we will have this session of questions, I will ask you to answer to this question. But I will tell you, but just because you are here now, before giving the floor to the other speaker to prepare your answer to this question, it's about VAT suspension. So that means the state simply didn't ask the companies to pay VAT. How can we see this? It was simply the Italian state didn't collect the money, or how it happened? What is?
It's a very clear question and very easy to answer. There were 2 sets of measures. One was a delay, as anything, so a fost amanate, and the other one was to connect the payment of the VAT with the cashing of the VAT. So you pay when you cash in, and that was already a major measure, and then has been even postponed to provide additional liquidity to the companies.
Thank you very much. We'll continue with the debates at the end. Thank you very much, Roberto. Now I will ask the last but not least, Mr. Silviu Bada from General Director from Subensemblu Auto, GIC, to give his views about our debate.
Good morning. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the invitation. Congratulations for the initiative. I didn't prepare a presentation. I will just make a short overview, like a business case of how our company passed through this last year and what are the current challenges we are facing. So just a short overview of our company. Subensemblu Auto is the mother company, and the group is called GIC, Grupul Industrial Componente. We are manufacturing mainly plastic and metal components for the local automotive industry, but we are also exporting mainly to Germany, France, Spain, England. Coming back to the and overall, we have 2,500 employees and consolidated turnover of about 145 million euro. Coming back to the last year, if we remember a little bit the beginning of the pandemic, so in March, April, when everything started in Romania, it was a delay of about 1.5 months comparing to the Western Europe. It was a kind of small, let's say, chaos or panic due to the lack of the protection materials, due to the lack of knowledge about the virus, and it was really very tough to cope with that in that very moment. What we have done, our production is done mainly in 8 different plants, in 8 different companies. We created crisis cells with the top and middle management in each plant, as well as a transversal crisis top management committee. And in about 3 weeks, we started to implement all the measures that were let's say, to be put in place at that moment, starting with thermovision cameras, starting with protection masks, plastic visors, reviewing the layouts of production where was possible, doubling the number of buses for the transport of the people, and so on. So it was really tough to manage all that. Hopefully we managed to implement all these things. And at that point, one of the toughest things was to convince the people to protect themselves, because the incidence in Romania was not that high at that moment. And many of them were not convinced about the existence of the virus. This changed over the time with the incidence locally. Okay, what is to remember about that period? It's, as was mentioned before, the association were very active in that period. As Vice President of ACAROM, we pushed as much as possible the communication straight to the government, and we had really positive feedback from all governments starting 2020. Yeah, it was a very short loop of communication, and a lot of, let's say, ideas or suggestions that we got from our members were upraised to the state authorities that had a positive feedback. The positive feedback, as was mentioned before, you can see it in the 8 measures that were implemented, especially the technical unemployment aid, which was a very consistent one for all the companies. And I think without that, maybe just half of the companies would be standing today. So this was one positive thing. As also mentioned before, the online and remote working started to be implemented with all the challenges that comes along for the IT departments in order to maintain the cybersecurity in parallel with the remote working. Then by the end of the year 2020, let's say August, September, we saw a nice recovery of the orders. In September, we were already at the, let's say, nominal level of 2019, but unfortunately that didn't last so long, because beginning of 2021, we started to hear about the semiconductor crisis and shortage due to the cannibalization between the automotive industry, IT industry, and so on. And then we start feeling randomly different of our customers communicating that they will have temporary shutdowns. It started in Germany with the first Ford plants. Then Dacia Renault announced us that they will have to reduce the production schedule to 3 days out of 5. Then Ford Craiova had to shut down for several weeks, and now they are working in 2 shifts instead of 3. And the same for all other customers that we have. And this was another pretty tough things to deal with, because when you have to deal with a production plant and start and stop, it is really complicating in managing the presence of the people, the availability of the people's raw materials, availability and level of stocks, management of the returnable packaging. So it really became a very complex equation to keep in balance. Logistics also became a challenge. And the last one, the raw material price increase. I would say it's really a price battle currently. We are facing increases starting from 20 up to 80, 100%. The availability of the raw materials is very tight, let's say. Sometimes we receive a price offer that are valid only for 3 hours. So within 3 hours, you have to place your order in order to get the raw material delivered 5 or 6 months from now on. So, as I said, the equation is very tough. And as Jérôme was saying before, Now it's like hot potatoes that everybody has in his hands, all this price increase, and everybody is trying to throw it behind in the next wagon, but it's not that easy. Because when you get the impact of all that price increases in your P&L, in your budget, you can see that this is not sustainable. I mean, you can sustain that for several months, the time that you start the negotiation with your customers in order to impact the price increase, because we don't think the situation will be only a transition one. But afterwards, anyway, I think this price escalation will have to go to the end customer, unfortunately. So maybe the price of the vehicles will have to increase. Unfortunately, the price increase will go maybe with a lower demand. So once again, we'll have to adapt to the future volumes. During all this time was one of our main tasks and targets was to maintain and stabilize the skilled people in our company, because sometimes the people got scared of the, let's say, incertitude of the automotive industry, and they were thinking to switch to different industries which were less affected during this time. So this was one of the main tasks, and hopefully we managed to have a stability in our teams. Nevertheless, we had also to restructure, so middle of 2020, without having a very good visibility what was going to be by the end of the year. We proceeded to some, let's say, pretty painful restructuring of the indirect labor. That had to be done in order to have, let's say, a little bit more flexibility and a lower break-even level due to the yo-yo in the market. So this is globally how we passed through the 2020 and where we are today. As a final statement, the very positive thing is that the pandemic, we feel that it's going away. The incidence that we have today, it's almost zero. It's something that 1 year ago we were not hoping, or we were not knowing which direction all this will go. Second half of 2021, we feel that the orders will come back. The communications we have from our customers is that apparently there are new capacities for semiconductors that will start in the second half of the year, that will be able to solve partially the shortage we have in the automotive industry. And also the communication we have is that there is standing demand in the market, meaning that if the components are there, the OEMs would run at their full capacity, at least for a few months in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bada. It was very interesting. Also, you have insight from a company and with a lot of challenges, and you did well trying to adapt to these challenges. It seems that this end of the pandemic will put other challenges to the companies, and the price factor, it's important. Sales are depending on this. So I will ask from the audience. I have some questions, so please me allow to read them. So for Sebastian, there is a question: how do you think the Romanian government did in terms of measures? What if you compare measures from Germany with measures from Romania? What is your opinion? That was another question for Sebastian, regarding the German companies received. He saw somebody from the audience saw that in a TV emission that German companies received compensations up to 80% from their turnover. Is it true or not? Then it was
Should I answer right now, or
Yes, please.
The first question. I mean, what Silvio described here as a CEO of a company is perfect. I mean, this is something that all the other companies are facing right now and will face even more. As I said, for me, I see that the development of the prices in terms of raw material, but also in terms of energy, will be a huge topic that will be discussed here in Europe. March 2020, the CO2 price for a ton was about 16 euros per ton. So 1.6. Right now we are talking about 50 euros, and until the end of the year, the predictions are talking about 100 euros. So we have a multiplication of, I do not know, six times of the CO2 price. This will have effects on every industry. So what the Romanian government can do is to look into the future. What will happen? There will be the Green Deal, making the economy more sustainable. There will be the digitalization. So these big mega trends will come to Romania. It's not a question if, it's just a question in the next 6 months or 1 year, how much we have to adapt. And the effects will be much bigger than the pandemic. So we need to design our policies here in Romania in order to digest these effects which will come. So we need more support, especially for Romanian SMEs, to cope with these challenges. And you can do this by financial support. You can do this to build up an infrastructure of authorities, agencies, which will be there to consult to consult the companies, with not so big costs, I would say, because all these things will happen, and the European funds should be used for the economy to adapt to these developments, which are not very far away. They will hit the economy this year and the next year already, very, very hard.
Yes.
Then, as I said, we need to take care about the education. Silvia was mentioning this. He did his level best actually to keep the people, because he needs trained and skilled people in order to make a revamp of activities. So also this area needs more direct support from the government in order to be updated. And we all will face big skill gaps due to 1.5 years of Corona pandemic. So the generations who are right now in the school, it's not a secret. They have not learned as much as they're supposed to learn. Yeah. So we are facing 2 problems. This generation in the school, plus let's say the structural deficit in the educational system here in Romania. And the third aspect is the adoption and the structural changes in the economy towards R&D, towards digitalization. So all these topics are here, but they need to be digested also through a foreign educational system. So these things should be focused in all the measures of the public authorities. For the 80% of the compensation, no, I do not have such detailed information. I cannot confirm. What I can confirm, or what I can say is the support schemes in Germany, they support under certain conditions up to 80% of the turnover. For example, the Kurzarbeit scheme is supporting up to 80% after 7 months, for example, of the losses of the salary, or the Überbrückungshilfe, the bridging aid, is covering up to 100% of the fixed cost, for example, of a certain. But you need to go very much into detail in each program, in each supporting scheme. They are quite substantial. This is what I can say. But compensation of up to 80% for the CO certificate, this is something I've never heard. There will be definitely some support for energy intensive industries, but we all have to digest the Green Deal and all the effects. And it's okay. I said in another, just to end, it's okay to have the Green Deal. It's not if, it is the how. Because climate change will happen, whether we like it or not. So we put Europe into this path of structural changes already right now, because we know what will happen in the near future. So the Green Deal is forcing us to make structural changes, to adapt European economies to the climate change in order to be competitive in this new, let's say, human environment. So this is something that we need to have, but we need to discuss more about how we can digest this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. Very deep thoughts. Indeed, you are covering very hot issues here in Romania. We are thinking also the business community do not have the necessary knowledge to take these challenges. We need transfer of knowledge. We need adaptation of the universities to these new roles, because the digital, but the gaps in the market will be huge. So indeed, we will have to look into this, and we are looking also to the Romanian agencies, Romanian government to speak that. We last Friday we had a very interesting discussion with the Consultative Council of for the Romanian strategy for macro-regional strategy related to these issues, because it seems that the lack of knowledge do not impede us to recognize these major schemes. We speak about the National Plan for Recovery, and many companies, they are saying, we don't need this hydrogen project. We don't need new adaptation for organic farming. We do not need digitalization. Why we should invest in this? Because we need more something else. So there is a clear lack of knowledge about these issues, and there is a clear misunderstanding of the fact that in a couple of years, many of the SMEs will simply die if they do not adapt. So that we have to send this message. And the question for the debate is how we can, being in this kind of associations, let's say, how to improve our services, educational services, combination of educational services with other partners like universities. I'm ready for this kind of cooperations. So how can we improve our response towards the business community in order to help them to understand faster the challenges and to meet these requirements? That is very, let's say, a question which will help also Romanian associations, the Romanian government to do. Maybe we'll have we'll have this kind of situation when we have this demo metal conference, which is really a transfer of knowledge to use these tools in order to improve the service. This is a question from my side to everybody. And please, be free to say. And also I have Jérôme presented on the chat the schemes from France. Everybody can see how France is introducing schemes for recovery. Yes, please. We are listening.
Da. Deci, nu, vis-a-vis de ce se fac Franța, v-am și pus în chat ca să aveți măsurile detaliate. Dar, cum vă spunem și mai devreme, este finanțarea tranziției digitale, care este esențială pentru toate companii, inovații și soluții ca să găsești soluții să mențină producția în Franța. Pentru asta a fost creată și niște împrumut garantat de statul francez. Eu nu am tot detaliile de acest tip de împrumut în minte, dar a fost foarte, foarte solid. Adică unul împrumut a fost, trebuie să verificate cifre, dar cred că în anumite cazuri până la 30% din cifră de afaceri. Și acest împrumut a fost garantat de stat. Deci un acces foarte, foarte ușor pentru firme în general. Și acum trebuie să găsim soluții diferite. Unde este importantă este ajutorul pentru angajaților. Deci gândiți că o firmă care angajează un tiner de sub 26 de ani în Franța primește 4.000 de euro ca să fie sprijinit acest acces la muncă pentru tineri. Este adevărul că în Franța nu există aceleași problematici și aceleași presiuni pe forță de muncă ca și în România. Sunt paradigmele diferite. Voluntarul teritorial este iar ceva care este important în Franța ca să ajut tineri să meargă în ambasade odată și mai mult decât atât, companii care angajează niște tineri care nu sunt din aceleași regiune primești scutire pe cheltuieli sociale și pe impozit. Sunt prime care ajung la 8.000 de euro, cum v-am și detaliat în chat. Dezvoltarea exportului, există niște credite de impozit pentru toate firmele care angajează niște operațiuni către export. Și operațiunile către export pot să fie activate prin diverse, adică pot să fie activate atât prin aparatul de statul francez, unde avem un sistem care se cheamă Business France, care este implantat în fiecare țară și în România. Avem un birou al Business France în România, care regrupează în jur de 15 persoane, care este, oamenii respectivi sunt funcționari, sunt plătiți de către stat și firme ca să pot să aibă acces către ei, plătești niște servicii ca să pot să aibă un acces la piața din România. Deci Business France e tot o posibilitate chiar pentru audiența care este aici. Să-l contactați și pe Business France dacă aveți activitate de producție și țintați piața din Franța. Pentru că rolul lui Business France este să găsești niște furnizori și niște clienți pentru firmele franceze care au nevoie. Lângă acesta există și toate rețeaua de camerele de comerț franceze bilaterale, care sunt peste tot. Dar aici, la nivelul francez, este un sistem încă diferit. Fiindcă camerele de comerț franceze bilaterale nu sunt subvenționate de către statul francez de niciun fel. Sunt asociația de firme. Cum este Camera de Comerț de Industrie franceză și Agricultură în România, este o asociație în care stat nu are ce să spună. Membrii noștri e o asociație cu membri și trebuie să găsești Camera de Comerț echilibru financiar singură. Doar cu cotizații membrii sale și serviciile care sunt prestate. Avem o structură financiară care este solidă în momentul de față în această asociație. Nu primim, cum să spun, sprijin, în schimb, da, plătim niște abonamente la Camera de Comerț Internațional din Franța și prin asta avem acces și la toate rețeaua de camere de comerț franțești bilaterale. Avem, spre exemplu, niște misiuni acum pentru firmele românești care vor să dezvolte operațiuni de export. Și ei nu vor să dezvolte operațiuni de export către Franța. Ei vor să dezvolte operațiuni de export către Serbia și Polonia. Și cu sistemul nostru putem să-l sprijinim în direcția aceasta. Avem exemplu foarte, foarte pozitiv care sunt în curs de derulare cu firmele românești. Deci, fără legături cu Franța, sunt o firme românești, vreți să facă export în Serbia, în Polonia, mă adresez către Camera de Comerț francez din România și vom găsi soluția. Pentru că dăm la dispoziție modul nostru organizațional, nu neapărat doar legătură cu Franța.
Mulțumesc foarte mult. Interesant că firmele de export românești pot să beneficieze de sprijin din Franța. Se pare că sprijinul nostru e cam fragil în momentul de față și așa că o să aveți multe solicitări. Întrebare din public pentru reprezentanții camerelor. Ne apropiem de final, dar sunt două întrebări. Există apetit pentru investiții în România din partea investitorilor străini? E o întrebare pusă din public. Și a doua întrebare pentru domnul Silviu Badea. Firma românească, ca firmă românească, what is the point of view, Mr. Badea, regarding assistance from the Romanian government to the Romanian companies in the industrial activities?
Ca să termin, dacă avem cuvântul, pot să vă spun că există interesul foarte ridicat acum de investi în România. Sunt solicitare. Sunt foarte firme care bănuiesc că răspunsul vor fi la fel și din alte comunitate, dar rapatrial de activitate industrială din Asia către Europa, România este unul din posibilitate pentru investitori care vor să vină. Limita rămân forță de muncă. Și aici toate camerele de comerț bilateral conduc o muncă susținută. Știu că și ACAROM are niște metode foarte bune de învățământ dual. Îl promovăm și noi și asta este cheie până la urmă să putem să sprijinim și este rolul camerei de comerț și al firme să sprijinim universitatea ca să poată să dezvolte niște formare profesională.
Thank you, Sebastian and Roberto. There are Italian, German investors. They want to invest in Romania. What the question from the audience?
Roberto, please go ahead.
No, I mean, as I said before, yes, there is. All through the pandemic, there has been an interest of new Italian investors in Romania. I would expect this to grow, judging by the requests we're having. I mean, on a regular basis, our chamber makes webinars, basically country presentations, with the regional chambers in my country. And last week we did one with Emilia-Romagna, which is center north of the country, pretty wealthy region actually, and we had a fair amount of attendance with questions varying from infrastructures to energy, healthcare, agriculture, and education, digitalization. So as I said before, I mean for Italian companies, particularly the small and medium size, Romania, it's a natural country for further development. So we're quite optimistic on the situation moving forward. Yes, as Sebastian and Jérôme said, there are some structural elements, both in terms of administrative hurdles that's from time to time you find, particularly at local level. That's something we need to tackle. There is of course lack of workforce, which we've seen even before the pandemic. Actually, the pandemic in the reverse might have eased the situation. but there are areas in the country, you know better than me, if I look at the metropolitan area of Timișoara, there the unemployment rate is frictional, 0.3, 0.5, less than 1%, which basically means that there is no really workforce available. If you want to foster internal migration, so to move personnel from areas where there is availability of workforce into those areas, then you should think strategically, because a young family with 2 children moving into an industrial area needs to have a certain type of support, kindergarten, affordable housing, and many other things of this kind. This reminds me very much Italy in the 60s, 50s, 60s, I mean, where we had the same problem. We had to migrate a large workforce from the south of Italy to the north of Italy, and we were lacking affordable infrastructures. So these are the problems that we will see moving forward. But having said that, the momentum and the sentiment, as Sebastian was mentioning, it is positive.
Thank you, Roberto. Sebastian.
Yeah, also from our side, yes, there is continuous interest in Romania as an investment location. Costin, you mentioned this topic of relocation, nearshoring. Definitely, Romania can benefit from this development, but it's in high competition. Also, AHK is a worldwide existing system of foreign trade and investment promotion bilaterally. So where we see a huge competitor in this region in terms of labor-intensive work is Ukraine, and also some of the Balkan countries. And also Republic of Moldova is developing its activities, where our chamber is also responsible for. Yeah, so there is competition, and if you want to, okay, I mean, Romania has chosen now the way to not be anymore a cheap labor cost destination, which is totally fine. You have to overcome this period, yeah. But you need to found also the layer for a higher added value production. Yeah. So, and in this crucial period, Romania is right now. I mentioned the education, which is fundamental to do so. And you, Costin, mentioned also we need a stronger collaboration between universities and the private companies. Totally right. I hope that the innovation, digital innovation hubs from the ministry will add on this. It could be a good instrument. You are totally right when you were saying that we need also a kind of mentality shift in the Romanian companies. This is also totally right. There are, of course, good companies here in Romania, but I mean, the quantity has to be bigger. So yeah, these are huge challenges. As I said, we see good opportunities to place Romania as a nice location in order in the strategic repositioning of the supply chain. We are working for this together with the Romanian government. We will have a conference on the 26th of June for this. And of course, all the export activities like for Romanian companies, we are also supporting. We have a platform, a digital platform for this, Marketplace Romania, which is available, and also lots of other activities, business delegation, B2B meetings, etc., which we are doing. This is the contribution that we can put here as an offer, but we need definitely a bigger picture to solve the huge problems here, the huge challenges that we have here.
Thank you, Sebastian. Yes, indeed, you are right. We are not alone. The investors are interested, but we are not the only ones to offer. So that means we have to improve our skills also to in attracting foreign investors. And this is also an issue which has to be dealt by the Romanian government as well. And also when Roberto said about the local information for attracting investors at local level, it's lacking sometimes, and we need to be more, let's say, advanced in knowledge how to attract better the investors. It's very much related also with the skills and adaptation of our business environment. So now we are closing, but there is a question Silviu Bada will have to answer. If there is something which is requested by the company and not offered.
Yeah, I will try to be quick. Currently, so we have the Kurzarbeit, which is a good help, but is something punctual for what is happening today. Then in place, the government has the state aid schema de ajutor de stat, which is a 50% intensity, but let's say it's pretty restrictive in the way you can implement it, and not everybody is able to fulfill all the conditions. What we find the most frustrating from our side is the impossibility to absorb European funds when you are not an SME, if you are not an IMM. And the definition of the current small and medium enterprise that is done in Brussels, it's really restrictive. If you overpass, I don't know, I think it's 200 employees and a few million euros, you are considered instantly a big company. So if you have 200 employees, you are just like Volkswagen, Tesla, or whatever, with companies with tens or hundreds of billions of euro turnover, and you cannot access funding anymore. Or in the industry, as Sebastian was saying, you need constantly to invest to become updating technology, to become greener, to pollute less, meaning that you constantly invest. So in my opinion, it's help for the investments, and not necessarily with Romanian funds, but with European funds. But this would mean that the definition of the SME should change. The level should be much higher than it is today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Indeed, there is also this question, this problem. So we are closing because we overpassed our timing with 5 minutes. It was very interesting discussion. We would like to continue in several occasions, so also during these demo days. By Wednesday, I will have my presentation of the hub, hub, which is in my back, this Wallachia eHub, which is a hub among the hubs which has been elected to become a European digital innovation hub. Thank you very much once again, and we'll hear each other. We see next. There will be a next event after a short pause. All the best to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.